Hello and welcome back to the Fasting with Trevor channel. I go over a bunch of detox methods and dry fasting information and how to heal and resolve all sorts of symptoms. Like I say in my other videos, I've done a lot of experimentation to the max degree, just exhausting all these other detox methods to see what actually works. So I've kind of like fine-tuned it down to like mostly dry fasting, but there are easy ways to rectify certain things. So in this video, I'm going to go over certain questions that people had and how to resolve certain like ailments. Currently, the most common one that people are calling in for is Lyme disease, and it's just kind of ironic. Like I don't think that many people are getting bit by actual ticks. I think it at this point it's kind of like under the same umbrella as Lyme disease, but it's just like a bacteria that's not really derived from ticks, and that's kind of like an unpopular opinion. But it's just too easy to get Lyme disease these days and deal with the neurological and physical deficits of it. And so, for those of you who do not understand how like this process works, or what people feel, it's just kind of like a gradual calcification and inflammatory response from the body that just only increases and gets worse, and you get more cancerous and dense and acidic. So it happens like more of a parabolic way because the pathogen that is the Lyme usually starts within a small sample size that you can get bit by a tick or exchange liquid in some capacity, and that colonizes the entire body, even the brain. Um, and so I'm just jumping straight into it. Um, so pretty much what you have to do is pull back this inflammation. So like get your body back because you're not retaining oxygen anymore because there's too much biofilm clogging your tissues, clogging the intestinal tract, so that you're not able to use oxygen as it was intended, which is more of a life source and to oxidize pathogens rather than having a suppressed immune system that can't really do anything because they're just traveling through sludge. So oftentimes people's hands and feet are very cold when they have Lyme disease because there's not any blood circulation going through their body. And you can pretty much resolve this very easily by just cleaning the blood. Of course, you can do fasting. I do like the iodine to clean the body. A lot of doctors say to not take as much iodine as I recommend, but I also like the NAC later on in the day. So the iodine is an oxidative thing, which is what we need, and the NAC is an antioxidative thing, which is more of a biofilm disruptor. It dissolves the biofilm so that the inflammation, the parasitic lymph, can't just settle in your tissues. And I had Lyme disease, and I was using ozone therapy to kind of like cure it. And I would just rash out all over my body and not really ever get to a full I can't use the C word, but a full resolution. So I had to kind of go into more hardcore things like fasting to resolve it. And and yeah, so if you wanted to kind of go into more of that, I do consultations and specifically how to resolve Lyme disease because people claim a lot of remedies for it, but it just comes down to cleaning the blood and then having enough electrolytes to let the blood and the oxygen flow through the body, and keeping this all like at bay and viral loads very low percentage. Because if you don't do that, then you're just doing detox methods that are just shifting around the pathogenic lymph and not really ever eradicating it. You know what I'm saying? Um, so yeah, I also wanted to go into how it's not enough to be like natural these days to resolve everything. Like I think the most natural thing you can do is fasting. We've been doing it since ancient times, and it's just one thing that's consistent. And that is something you can do to resolve all issues, in my opinion, except for like compound fractures or like organs that you had surgically taken out of the body for whatever reason in the hospital. But these days there's so much competition and so much money, too much greed in the world. So obviously everyone knows that sickness equals profit for big companies. So it's obviously incentivized to keep you sick. And you can easily do this. Like anybody can go to a lab and manufacture a virus that is able to fine tune how exactly you want to keep that person sick, even to the point where you can specify certain races are um, exempt from actually catching that bacteria that was manufactured in the lab. So you can make something that looks exactly like Lyme disease. You can make something that looks exactly like the flu. It's just anything can be manufactured. And the thing is, people are confused because everyone's sick these days. So everyone's dealing with something, and it's driving them to the doctors that are prescribing medication, and that's how they get commission and residual profit, and then the bigger entity makes the real money. So there's a few questions that I wanted to go over, um, but yeah, I kind of wanted to kind of harp on that concept of like being like eating natural and doing what you think is completely healthy sometimes isn't enough. So oftentimes I'll get people who are doing everything perfectly, and they still they still kind of have these like symptoms and they don't know what to do. And so oftentimes that's how the bacteria is manufactured. It's manufactured to be resilient or evade the immune system or lack a cell wall, so you can't oxidize it with your usual phagocytes and white blood cells and your regular immune system. So you have to kind of involve anti-parasitics if you're not going to do longer fasts. And the one caveat with fasting that a lot of people are like, oh, I'm worse off after I fasted, it's mostly because they didn't do it long enough. Because you think about, I like to think of things in simple terms. Like if I do a really, really long fast, I'm essentially becoming a blank canvas of bacteria. I don't even have any good bacteria nor bad. So I'm just pretty much saying everybody has to leave the party, and you become a blank canvas that you can populate with the bacteria of your choice. So any food that you have has bacteria, and that's how you colonize the gut over the course of months. But if you don't do it long enough, and you have something like Lyme disease or HSV1 or AIDS or a cancer even, you can half-ass it. You can go 75% of the way, and so you do like an 11-day dry fast, and then you just decimated everything down to 25%, and then now it has to recolonize the body as if it's the parasite's first time infecting you. You know what I'm saying? So people are like, oh my gosh, I feel worse after the fast. It's because you didn't go long enough, not medical advice, and you are now experiencing the reinstigation of that pathogen that now has to find a hiding spot in your body again, because your immune system is always active and it's always saying like, okay, you can't be here. Let's bury yourself somewhere so you're not exposed, because if you don't do that, we're always active. And that's what doctors call autoimmune issue, but they have it defined very weirdly, where they think your body's attacking itself, but no, it's just like your body's constantly active, and it's trying to find a homeostasis and make the parasites at least buried enough to not be a factor anymore. And that's what you call a dormant parasites. So people can think that they're cured from HSV, but it's really just embedded in their nerve ganglion, waiting for the day when you get no sleep and you're having too much sugars, and then you have an outbreak, right? Oftentimes, that's like the second most popular thing people have is HSV. Number one is Lyme, two is HSV, and the next one is tumors and cancers, and then the fourth is probably cysts, and the fifth is probably like vaccine injury, believe it or not. And I even have doctors calling for that. They're just confused on what to do, and they don't want to keep taking antihistamines. Anyway, so moving on. So I have about 5 questions. I can read all of them right now to see if you're interested in staying tuned to the video, and then you can skip ahead if you wanted to. So the first question is is it important to have a regulated nervous system before a long fast, and do you take this into account? The second question is, have you looked into Alex Zek? I'll just answer that right now. I haven't, but he talks about breakdown of the non-existence of viruses. The third question is, how many days does it take to completely detox and purify the skin? The fourth question is, what do you think of ivermectin? And the fifth question is the iodine protocol something that should be an everlasting routine, or you just take consistently? And there's one extra question actually, that is, how do you address the heavy metal toxicity issue? Okay, so the first question, is it important to have a regulated nervous system before a long fast? Do you take this into account? So the whole point of fasting is purifying your internal liquids. It's all about the water. Who cares about the word fasting? Who cares about all these other concepts? Everyone has blockages and obstacles within them, and you're chewing through all that through apoptosis and autophagy. Autophagy is chewing through you, self-cannibalization, so that there's no energetic blockages, so you're not compromised as a spiritual vessel or a physical vessel, you're in optimal form. And when you're not at optimal form, the extreme opposite is that you're very calcified, a lot of parasitic lymph, a lot of like thick blood. You most likely have, you're tired all the time, your vision is impaired, you're depressed, you have, suicidal ideation. But the opposite is being very clean, pure blood, where you're on natural ecstasy pretty much, and you feel very happy and optimistic about life, and energy's flowing, and you can express that, socially as well. So with what I mean that is because your body essentially is an alien. It's like a nervous system of wires connected to a bag of water. You happen to have some bones and organs as well. Okay. So how clean can you get that bag of water? That's exactly what fasting does. It purifies the bag of water. So your nervous system is able to communicate with itself. So it's able to distribute like hormones and electrical currents through your body so that there's like radio signals. So everything's kind of like, accounted for, and the management system is on point. So the parasites and the microscopic demons can prevent that communication. Everything's a fractal, so that's all these demonic parasites want to do, is prevent any communication with self or with God by calcifying the pineal gland and the hypothalamus and the thyroid. And that's how you compromise the endocrine system. Parasites absolutely know this. That's why everyone has thyroid issues these days. It's a very popular concept. So, so people say, this guy's saying, is it important to have a regulated nervous system? The fasting will take care of that. That's how you regulate your nervous system, is by dipping into fasting little by little and doing eventually longer ones where you kind of are able to educate yourself on like, wow, now my nervous system is really turned on, and what other tools is it able to give me, and you feel more hyper alert and more hypersensitive when you start detoxifying. And to the point where I'm not even like into astral projection, but it's naturally available to me based on my pineal gland and my lymph being so clean and my nervous system being online, because parasites love embedding themselves on your nervous system. They're trying to make you as electrically efficient as possible, because then they can survive. It's all about survival. And that's what fasting is as well. Like, how long can I survive before I kill all these parasites, or before I die, essentially, right? And that's the equation. That's what I've figured out, is how long I can survive before bad things happen. And hopefully the parasites shed off along the way, A lot of people don't know that answer, and a lot of fasting practitioners out there absolutely do not have that answer and are after your money, where they want you to keep coming back to the retreat. Just do another fast. It'll heal you, surely, this one. But it's really the one fast that does it, and it's the fast leading up, unblock you and dissolve the blockages, so it's easier to get to the one deeper one, which resolves everything, or the one thing you're after. Because oftentimes the body's after a lot more than you realize. It just depends on how sensitive you are with your physicality. Second question is, have you looked into Alexec, the breakdown of non-existence of viruses? So I'm not that, I can be woo-woo, but I'm not that woo-woo to just completely be blindly unaware of the existence of pathogens. Just because they're so small that I can't see doesn't mean they don't exist. The only argument, if I were to argue that viruses don't exist and parasites are good, then I would pretty much be saying like, okay, let's just talk about that being energy. Like, I can address it as energy, and that's bad energy, and fasting will take care of it anyway. But I can also scientifically see this energy in parasitic form. Like, HSV has like an octagonal alien type body that is able to embed within your lymph, and it looks like a staph infection. So that's definitely something there. It's not like it's non-existent. It's kind of like saying, things don't exist when they really do. Like, there's no outer space. It's just like a projection screen, and people are just, so blinded by, media telling them that this is true. People have like really weird theories where they just kind of go a little bit too far down the rabbit hole. So like, if viruses were not existent, then why do like, I always say, like, why do people use condoms to protect themselves from like sexually transmitted diseases? Like, it's just not existent. If it's just an energy, maybe you can be, holier than thou and just not get herpes or AIDS, So I think it's really an easy one to debunk. And you can also say the other argument, and it might trigger some people, like, parasites are good. I'm like, okay, well, Yeah, that's like saying like terrorists are good for the world. Like all people necessarily aren't a net positive for the planet, but they do play a part. And if terrorists are like killing hundreds of millions of people, maybe it's a good idea for them to stop doing that or curate that bacteria or terrorist, you know? So if there's terrorists on board on your physical body, therefore you can pick and choose which ones you want on a fast, you know? People who don't understand fasting have to make friends with the terrorists because they don't know any other pathway out. There's no other hope. Like I need to love my STDs because doctors tell me that there's no resolution to them. You know what I'm saying? It's just not true. You can definitely curate who's at the party and who isn't. Like I mentioned, the concept of a blank canvas. You fast long enough to be in a blank canvas. Hopefully, this is all making a lot of sense. Um, Next question is, how many days does it take to completely detox and purify the skin? Yeah, that's a great question. You will feel detoxed and purified. It depends on what that person's suffering from. But like oftentimes, if people have like a high cholesterol diet, you can have like fatty or protein rich skin that's just kind of it's more dense, you know, like a raw vegan or fruitarian has like really thin and like clean skin, but they're kind of lacking like the protein and fat rich intake that your body uses during a fast. Like you go into ketosis and you tap into your fat stores, and that's a new energy source. Fruitarians don't really have that. They don't have abundance of that. So like if you have like a carnivore person that's eating a lot of butter and eggs and you know sometimes they don't work out, and then there's just like accumulation of this in their cardiovascular system and their skin. Unless they're doing saunas and exercising, then they're just going to keep compiling that and create like these little blockages that are totally fixable. But to purify the skin, you can do it as little as 5 days. Um, but if you're dealing with like an eczema type issue, you know, like it, you can feel like your skin is clean like very early on. Like it sometimes can only take 5 or 7 days of a dry fast. With a water fast, it takes about like at least 14 days. But if you're dealing with like a resistant parasite that's embedded in the skin, that's going to take a lot longer. So for me, like I dry fasted longer than 15 days multiple times, and eventually 21 to 23 days. I was able to do for things to like really just everything is gone, but it's very dangerous to do that unless you're supervised. I don't recommend it unless you do have somebody looking over you, especially if you're going beyond like day 7 and your BMI is too low. If you're too skinny going into these fasts, it's very dangerous because that's your insurance policy. That's what you can go into to kind of have more time. You're buying time with fat stores, and we're not all breatharians, so we don't know how to like exist on air, even though we're very skinny. You know, so you have to afford that ability. Um, Next question is, what do you think of ivermectin? I don't think ivermectin is a full-on resolution for all things, but it's surely is, the statistics are showing that it's actually beneficial, but it only focuses on a certain subset of worms, so if you have like the type of worm that occupies your ocular nerves and your the eyes, then you can cure like river blindness, or if it has certain types of worms within your body systemically, it's able to get rid of that. So it'll maybe agitate other worms, but it's not going to kill everything. But it's certainly good against the viruses that were manufactured in the lab. Um, but you kind of have to go a little higher dose. I'm like a high dose kind of guy and do it for at least 42 days. Obviously, pairing that with fenbendazole, this is not medical advice, kind of gets the full spectrum of worms in that category. But I also consider parasites to be things that are microscopic, like pathogenic lymph. That's not necessarily worms, but it has to be addressed with things like ivermectin or like chlorine dioxide solution, or you know what else can you do, or just fasting. Fasting's the end all be all. And then like regarding like biofilm, I like the iodine, I like the NaC, and I like enzymes and electrolytes, and then lowering the carb intake because the carb is going to spike your blood sugars, and that blood sugar will feed the biofilm. And so the concept that I hope people understand is that when people have biofilm, it's not just in one area like the sinuses where it creates like a deviated septum, where it's an accumulation of mucus that solidifies and calcifies like arthritis does. That's pathogenic lymph. but it also coats your intestinal canal, intestinal passages, where you have healthy bacteria under the biofilm, but it's too competitive. The biofilm is too selfish, and it won't allow you from naturally digesting things. And this is exactly how stomach cancers start and accumulate into stage 2, stage 3, stage 4, because the biofilm is preventing proper digestion. Food just sits there while the parasitic lymph just like selfishly, chews through it. Not as good as your normal bacteria, your normal biome, but then you have to use like a laxative, and a lot of people just never understand this process. They never understand pathogenic lymph has to be dissolved, and then you have to reaccumulate healthy gut biome, and you got to keep your foot on the gas pedal, because these people are not going to fast. They're just going to let the stomach cancer get worse and worse and worse. And you can lead a horse to water, but you can't make him drink it. Like, I can tell people the why, but it's just not enough for some people. Some people it is. Dissolve the biofilm and you're going to feel higher IQ, because that's exactly what happens when you fast or when you have iodine. Like, it literally statistically raises your IQ, because less inflammation equals higher IQ, and you have more cognitive abilities and more accessibility to your brain, and your nervous system can distribute those messages. Everything is connected. Sometimes I feel like it's crazy how doctors are not talking about these kind of things, and health is incredibly simple, and as it should be. And I often say that God didn't make things complex. See, it's very easy. You do nothing to heal. Fasting is literally doing nothing. That's how easy it should be. Anybody who sells you on something, a product online, which everybody is, like, it's a minor way of telling you that you're incomplete, not enough, you're insufficient. Take my product, then you're complete. Okay, only with my product can you be complete, but that's not the design that God intended. Fasting also tells you exactly how little is enough for you to intake energetically. So what foods are enough for me to feel my best and not be compromised. And you'll know you're compromised when your nails are getting brittle or weak and your hair is falling out. You you you're kind of losing like bone density. This is a sign that you're in a deficiency. You have malabsorption, and oftentimes biofilm can prevent that nutritional absorption. Um, so these are a lot of the concepts I talk to people on consultations, and because you have to explain the why before you present the protocol, and then they can get there. Health can be achieved very, very quickly. When I first started, I in 3 days I was already feeling completely different by just me changing my ways. And then eventually, dry fasting is the ultimate, where a 6 day dry fast, 6 to 7 day dry fast is equivalent to doing 21 days water. So you save a lot of time. It's just a little bit harder. People enjoy it, but going beyond day 7 of a dry fast is going to be pretty difficult. That's when you really get tested. And it's really important to have the right setting at that point, because now you got to work with the elements being the air and the humidity in the air and the wind and the sun and the coldness, and being completely natural, like having your skin exposed to the sun, so you're disintegrating proteins on your skin to use as fuel, as vitamin D. Um, some people never get vitamin D until they fast, because all the foods they're eating have these oils that are just surfacing themselves on systemically. So the sun can never penetrate. So you see a theme here is like, those people are in bed with the pharmaceutical industry that wants people sick. So now the sun no longer performs its duty, which is to deliver energy to you. That's blatantly what it's done since the beginning of time. Is if there wasn't sun here, there wouldn't be plant, there wouldn't be life. And even my dog likes to sunbathe in the morning without me even telling it to. It's just like wants to just chill and receive energy, and it's healing. It's incredibly detoxifying. But oftentimes people think vitamin D is something that can be swallowed, when in reality it's more of a hormone than it is a actual vitamin. So you're dissolving protein into, or fats into, an energy source that it's like a photosynthesis but in human form. Um, okay, and last question I have here, and I'm happy I'm keeping this video nice and short. Haven't put out anything in a long time. Hopefully this is higher quality for you guys. Um, I plan on doing a lot more in the future, by the way. And I'm doing like a Patreon where people can like get more consistent updates and cool revelations with health, and ask constant questions and stuff like that. Because I would like to make this more of a lifestyle than just me popping on every 3 months to kind of help people out a little bit. The last question is, how do you address the heavy metal toxicity issue? So People ask this all the time, and they get really, these are two things that people get obsessed with, is like mold and heavy metals. And there's two things that they can't really like measure in their body, but homeopathic doctors and regular doctors got them obsessed with it. And yes, it is an issue. Some people are allergic to mold more than others, but like the fast will completely purify your inner liquids. So the mold will definitely be addressed by autophagy, but things like chlorine dioxide solution and iodine will address it immediately and orally. But you gotta take it slow, because you can create symptoms by detoxing too fast, and you get tired, and you can get a goiter or like swollen lymph nodes because you have pathogens that are now being attacked for the first time, and they're telling you to stop doing this. And most people do stop, and doctors tell you to stop because we don't like pushback, we don't like detoxification. So just let the parasites dwell within the body, and just stop doing something that's oxidative. So the heavy metals, that, in my opinion, like there's nothing better than iodine and NaC to address heavy metals. Like, yes, the fast will make sense as well, but just Google it. You can see for yourself that the heavy metals are taken out by the iodine. Iodine performs a lot of positive things, and it's kind of good to experiment with what's your perfect dose. Because I often say in all my videos that the people that live longest on this earth happen to accumulate the most iodine, and that's the Japanese people. Okinawa, this island just south of Japan, is obsessed with iodine. They're obsessed with sea vegetation, and it's just like they live the longest period of time. And on the island, it's harder for parasites to jump, and travel. They're more like big land mass um, projects. When a parasite is kind of able to kind of jump from person to person, it's harder to jump islands. So island people usually live a little bit longer, I think. Um, so yeah, those are the three things, 6 questions I wanted to address, and hopefully I put out more videos like this in the future. And if you have any questions, I'll try to be in the comments to address new questions, and make a new video, maybe once a week. So yeah, I still have a lot of videos I've compiled with me traveling and talking about whatever health revelations I have. But yeah, fasting is a hardcore thing, and we can talk about it like, yes, I'm going to fast and I'm going to go in it tomorrow. And don't make the mistake of like, being too inspired where you're like not going to do any intestinal cleansing or any mineral electrolyte supplementation leading up, because then you're just like, it's a recipe for disaster, and you have to learn that mistake through something bad that happens on the fast, where you get like really lethargic or nauseous, or you want to vomit. Just do things properly, clean the body out, and then approach into the fast naturally, with surplus of minerals, electrolytes, and these things, and proper BMI, body mass index. I'll go into like the process of how I do these longer fasts in the future. But yeah, here's my reconnection with you guys after a few months off, and hopefully you enjoyed it. And I'll talk to you soon. Bye.